Tom Baker stood at his kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, watching the moving vehicles hover above his new neighbor's driveway. He had seen aliens before. Everyone had since first contact 15 years ago. But having one move in next door was different. The property had been empty for months, and Tom had gotten used to the quiet. The moving robots efficiently carried boxes and furniture into the house while their new owner supervised. Tom couldn't help but stare at his new neighbor, a tall, purple-skinned being with 4 arms and shimming scales that caught the morning sunlight. The alien wore what looked like a business-casual outfit, though the cloth seemed to ripple like water. Well, Tom muttered to himself, there goes the neighborhood's property value. He immediately felt guilty for the thought. The interstellar immigration program had been a huge success, and most alien residents were model citizens. Still, change wasn't easy. Later that afternoon, Tom's doorbell rang. He opened it to find his new neighbor standing there, all 4 hands holding different housewarming gifts. A pot of something that looked like cookies, a glowing plant, a bottle of what appeared to be wine, and a standard Earth welcome card. "Greetings, I am Blue," the alien said in perfect English, their voice melodious and gentle. "I thought it would be proper to introduce myself to my nearest dwelling companion." Tom blinked, surprised by how normal Blue sounded. "I'm Tom Baker. Welcome to Maple Street." He accepted the gifts, trying not to stare at how Blue's scales shifted colors slightly when they moved. "I researched human customs extensively before moving here," Blue explained proudly. "The cookies are made with Earth ingredients and are completely safe for human consumption. The wine is from my homeworld, but has been certified for human biology. The plant is a traditional gift from my people. It responds to positive emotions by glowing brighter." Tom found himself smiling despite his earlier reservations. "That's really thoughtful, thank you. Would you like to come in for coffee? Or do you drink coffee?" "I would be delighted. Coffee is one of your planet's greatest achievements. My species can actually process caffeine quite efficiently." As they sat in Tom's kitchen, he learned that Blue worked as a xenobotanist, studying how Earth plants could be adapted for other worlds. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Blue had a dry sense of humor and seemed genuinely interested in learning about human customs. Over the next few weeks, Tom observed Blue settling into the neighborhood. The alien's front yard gradually transformed into something out of a science fiction magazine. Perfectly trimmed grass remained, but among it grew plants that seemed to dance in invisible winds. Some changed colors throughout the day, while others emitted soft, pleasant fragrances that drifted through the neighborhood. Other aliens occasionally visited Blue, but they always seemed very formal and polite. Blue explained they were colleagues from the Botanical Research Center. Tom noticed they always seemed to bow slightly when greeting Blue, though Blue never mentioned why. Everything seemed perfectly normal until one evening when Tom was grilling on his back porch. A strange humming sound caught his attention. It was coming from Blue's yard, but it wasn't unpleasant, more like a distant song that you could feel more than hear. Tom walked to the fence between their properties. Blue's garden was glowing more brightly than usual, and the plants seemed to be swaying in rhythm with the humming. Blue stood in the middle of the garden, their scales shimming with patterns Tom had never seen before. "Everything okay over there?" Tom called out. Blue turned, and for a moment, their eyes seemed to glow. "Oh yes, just some routine botanical harmonics. Nothing to be concerned about, dwelling companion Tom." But something in Blue's voice sounded different, almost excited or nervous. Tom couldn't quite put his finger on it, but as he went back to his grilling, the humming grew louder, and he could have sworn he saw more of Blue's plants starting to glow with a pulsing light that matched the mysterious sound. Something was definitely changing in the neighborhood, and Tom had a feeling his life was about to get a lot more interesting. Tom woke up early the next morning to a strange sight. His bedroom window, which faced Blue's yard, was filled with a soft, pulsing glow. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. Overnight, Blue's perfectly maintained lawn had become covered in mushrooms, but not any mushrooms he'd ever seen before. These fungi were bioluminescent, glowing in shades of blue and purple. They formed perfect circles across the lawn, like someone had carefully planned their placement. As Tom watched, the mushrooms seemed to pulse with light in a synchronized pattern. "That can't be normal," he muttered, quickly getting dressed and heading outside. He wasn't the only one interested in the new garden addition. 3 other aliens stood on the sidewalk, looking at Blue's yard with what Tom thought might be excitement. They were different species. One looked like a walking crystal, another had features like a giant praying mantis, and the third reminded Tom of a very tall otter. The crystal alien noticed Tom and made a sound like wind chimes. "Ah, the dwelling companion. How fortunate you are." "Fortunate?" Tom asked, confused. "What's going on with those mushrooms?" The mantis-like alien clicked its mandibles. "It is the great blooming. We had heard rumors that one of our cosmic friends was approaching their time, but to have it happen in our neighborhood." Before Tom could ask what that meant, all 3 aliens hurried up to Blue's front door. Each carried what looked like gifts, boxes wrapped in shimmering materials that seemed to change shape and color. They left the packages on Blue's doorstep, made elaborate bowing gestures, and quickly departed. Throughout the day, more aliens visited, each leaving gifts. Tom watched from his window as the pile grew. Some packages glowed, others hummed, and a few seemed to float slightly above the ground. Around noon, Tom finally saw Blue emerge. His neighbor's appearance had changed dramatically. Blue's usually purple skin now shimmered with intricate patterns that moved like waves across their scales. The patterns seemed to match the pulsing of the mushrooms in the yard. "Good day, dwelling companion Tom," Blue called out, their voice musical but somehow more resonant than before. "I hope the night's changes haven't disturbed you." Tom walked over to his fence. "Blue, your yard is full of glowing mushrooms, and your skin is different. Are you okay?" Blue's patterns flickered faster for a moment. "Oh, yes, more than okay. This is, well, it's a natural process for my species, though I admit it's happening faster than I expected. The Earth's atmosphere must be affecting my cycle." More aliens appeared on the street, pointing and making excited sounds. Some took pictures with devices Tom had never seen before. Blue's patterns flickered rapidly, and they seemed almost embarrassed. "Tom," Blue said quietly, moving closer to the fence, "I may need to ask for a rather unusual favor. Would you be willing to be my spore guardian?" "Your what?" "Spore guardian. It's a very respected position in my culture. I need someone I trust to watch over things while I prepare." Blue's patterns formed swirling circles. "Humans have a unique quality that makes them excellent guardians during this time. Your species has a remarkable ability to adapt to the unexpected." Before Tom could respond, a group of alien children ran past, pointing at Blue's yard and making sounds that reminded Tom of tinkling bells. Their parents quickly gathered them up, making apologetic gestures toward Blue. "I don't mean to rush you," Blue continued, their patterns now pulsing faster, "but I really do need an answer soon. The process has already begun, and traditionally, one should have a guardian selected before the first chiming." "The first what?" Tom asked. As if in answer, all the mushrooms in Blue's yard suddenly glowed brilliantly, and a deep, resonant chime echoed through the neighborhood. The sound seemed to vibrate in Tom's chest, and he noticed all the aliens on the street had stopped to bow deeply. Blue's patterns now moved so fast, they were almost a blur. "Oh dear," they said. "We may have less time than I thought." "Tom, about being my spore guardian." Tom stood in Blue's living room, trying to process what he'd just heard. The walls pulsed with a soft bioluminescent glow that matched the patterns now flowing across Blue's skin. 4 other aliens sat on floating cushions. They had introduced themselves as the Council of Seasonal Witnesses, whatever that meant. "Let me get this straight," Tom said slowly. "You're entering your mating season." Blue's pattern swirled in what Tom was starting to recognize as embarrassment. "Yes, but it's much more complex than Earth biological processes. My species undergoes a complete transformation during this time. The mushrooms in the yard are actually biocommunication nodes. The tallest member of the council, who looked like a walking collection of crystals, chimed in with a musical voice. It is a most sacred and celebrated time. Your neighbor Blue is one of only 50 of their species currently in the galaxy-spanning transformation phase. And you want me to be your spore guardian? Tom asked, still confused. What exactly does that mean? The spore guardian, another council member explained, their jellyfish-like body glowing softly, maintains the harmony of the transformation space. They tend to the biocommunication nodes, monitor the frequency patterns, and most importantly, help evaluate potential mates. Tom nearly choked on the tea Blue had given him. Evaluate mates. Me? Humans have a unique gift, Blue said excitedly, their patterns forming rapid spirals. Your species possesses something we call intuitive resonance. You can sense emotional harmonies in ways that even our most advanced technology cannot replicate. The smallest council member, who reminded Tom of a sentient cloud, floated closer. In the past 5 years, humans have proven to be exceptional spore guardians. Your species has an amazing ability to understand complex emotional patterns without any formal training. It's quite remarkable. But I don't know anything about alien mating, Tom protested. That's exactly why you're perfect, Blue explained. You'll judge potential mates based on pure emotional resonance, without any cultural bias. Plus, you're my friend and neighbor. I trust your judgment. The crystal alien produced a holographic display showing various patterns. The process is actually quite simple for the Guardian. The mushrooms in the yard will react to the harmony patterns of potential mates. You'll naturally sense which patterns feel right or wrong. Your instincts will guide you. And this is legal? Tom asked uncertainly. All 5 aliens laughed in their various ways, chimes, bubbles, and musical notes filling the room. It's not only legal, the jellyfish alien said, it's highly prestigious. Being chosen as a spore guardian is one of the highest honors in many galactic cultures. Several human spore guardians have gone on to become respected diplomatic consultants. Blue's patterns suddenly pulsed brightly, and all the mushrooms in the yard chimed in harmony. The council members immediately stood up, the second chiming. They announced in unison, "We must prepare." "Tom," Blue said urgently, "I need your answer now. Will you be my spore guardian? I wouldn't trust anyone else with this." Looking at his alien neighbor, Tom realized how far he'd come from his initial skepticism when Blue first moved in. Here was someone who had become a genuine friend, asking for help during an important life event. Sure, it was probably the strangest request he'd ever received, but wasn't this exactly what the interstellar immigration program was about? Different species learning to help and understand each other. "Okay," Tom said finally. "I'll do it, but you'll have to explain everything I need to know." The council members made sounds of approval, while Blue's patterns erupted in joyful swirls. "Thank you, Tom. The third chiming will begin soon, and then the potential mates will start arriving. I'll teach you everything you need to know about the harmony patterns." "Potential mates?" Tom asked. "How many are we talking about?" The crystal alien's voice chimed with amusement. "Well, considering Blue's status and the rarity of this event, I'd say you should prepare to evaluate at least 100 candidates from across the galaxy." Tom's eyes widened. 100? "Oh yes," Blue said cheerfully, their patterns forming complex geometric shapes. "And that's just in the first wave." Tom's first day as a spore guardian started at dawn. He stood in Blue's backyard, wearing what the council had called traditional guardian attire, a robe that seemed to be made of living fabric, shifting colors to match the mushroom's glow. He felt ridiculous, but Blue had insisted it was necessary to enhance his natural resonance abilities. "The first task," Blue explained, their patterns moving slowly for clarity, "is morning harmony alignment. Just walk among the mushrooms and listen to their songs." "They're what?" Tom asked, but then he heard it. Each mushroom was humming softly, creating a complex melody that made his skin tingle. "Trust your instincts," Blue said. "If any sound feels wrong, just touch the mushroom gently." Tom walked through the yard, feeling increasingly foolish. But then he stopped. One mushroom's song seemed off-key somehow. Without thinking, he reached down and touched it. The mushroom's glow pulsed once, and its tone shifted, blending perfectly with the others. "Exceptional," Blue exclaimed, their patterns forming excited spirals. Most guardians take days to sense harmonic discrepancies. Throughout the morning, Tom learned more about his duties. The mushrooms weren't just for show. They were sophisticated biological communication devices. Each potential mate would use them to broadcast their harmony pattern, something Blue described as a mixture of emotional resonance, genetic compatibility, and cultural frequency. "Think of it like a cosmic dating profile," Blue tried to explain, but instead of pictures and words, it's pure emotional energy. Around noon, the first real test came. A tall, elegant alien that looked like a walking aurora borealis appeared in the yard. They bowed to Tom, then touched one of the larger mushrooms. Immediately, the entire yard lit up with new patterns and sounds. Tom felt something. The harmony was beautiful, but something felt superficial about it, like a song that was technically perfect but lacked heart. "I don't think." Tom started hesitantly. "Speak your truth, Guardian," the council member observing the process encouraged. "Your intuition is why you were chosen." "It's too perfect," Tom said. "Like it's rehearsed. There's no warmth." The aurora-like alien's lights dimmed briefly, then they bowed again. "The Guardian speaks truth. I did indeed practice my harmony. I shall return when I have found my true resonance." After they left, Blue's patterns danced excitedly. That was amazing. Even our most sophisticated instruments couldn't have detected a rehearsed harmony. Throughout the day, more potential mates arrived. Some harmonies made Tom feel peaceful, others excited, and a few gave him headaches. He found he could explain these feelings in ways that made sense to both the visitors and Blue. "It's like music," he told Blue during a break. "Some songs just feel right, others don't, even if you can't explain why." Exactly. Blue's patterns formed complex geometric shapes. That's why humans make such good guardians. You understand emotional resonance instinctively. The day's biggest surprise came when Tom discovered he could adjust the mushroom's arrangement to create better harmony fields. He didn't know how he knew. He just felt certain places would work better than others. "Remarkable," the Crystal Council member observed. "He's displaying advanced guardian abilities already. The mushrooms are responding to his emotional field." By sunset, Tom had evaluated 12 potential mates. His head was buzzing with harmonies, and he felt mentally exhausted but strangely satisfied. "You've done wonderfully," Blue said as they wrapped up the day. "But tomorrow will be more challenging. Word has spread about a guardian with strong intuitive abilities." "More challenging?" Tom asked, worried. "How?" Blue's patterns formed what Tom now recognized as their equivalent of a nervous smile. "Well, several high-ranking officials from various worlds have expressed interest in presenting their harmonies, and there's a possibility that galactic media might want to observe." Tom stared at his neighbor. "Galactic media? You mean alien news?" "Oh yes," Blue said cheerfully. "Apparently, you're becoming quite famous in certain circles. Something about the human who speaks to mushrooms." Tom groaned. Somehow, he had a feeling this was only the beginning of his strange new responsibilities. By the third day of his guardian duties, Tom's quiet suburban yard had turned into what felt like an intergalactic festival. Floating cameras operated by small drone-like creatures hovered around the perimeter, broadcasting to what Blue called select cultural channels across 17 star systems. "Remember," Blue said, their patterns showing nervous swirls, "today's candidates include 3 planetary ambassadors and a renowned harmony master." Tom adjusted his guardian robe, which had started responding to his emotions, shifting between deep blues and purples. "No pressure, then." The first candidate arrived in what could only be described as a spaceship limousine. A being that looked like living starlight glided out, accompanied by an entourage of smaller, twinkling entities. "Ambassador Stellar," announced one of the council members, their crystalline form vibrating with formal tones. The ambassador approached the largest mushroom cluster. Their starlight form began to pulse, and the mushrooms responded with an intricate symphony of light and sound. The gathered crowd of aliens murmured appreciatively. Tom closed his eyes, feeling the harmony wash over him. It was beautiful, complex, and empty. "I'm sorry," he said, opening his eyes. "The technical execution is flawless, but there's no joy. It's like reading a perfectly written letter that has no heart." A shocked silence fell over the crowd. One of the ambassador's attendants made an outraged tinkling sound, but the ambassador themselves dimmed thoughtfully. "In 900 years, no one has dared critique my harmony so directly," they said. Then, surprisingly, their light brightened. "How refreshing. I shall contemplate this wisdom." The next candidate was the Harmony Master, a being that looked like a collection of floating musical instruments. Their harmony made the mushrooms dance and sing in ways Tom hadn't seen before. Even blues patterns became more vibrant in response. But Tom frowned. "There's something familiar about this." He walked around the mushroom circle, touching each one gently. As he did, their songs changed slightly, revealing the hidden pattern. "This harmony," he said slowly, "it's borrowing pieces from other harmonies I heard yesterday. It's beautiful, but it's not original." The Harmony Master's instruments clashed in a discordant note, then quickly reassembled themselves. I apologize. I thought combining the most successful elements would cheat the process." Blues patterns showed disappointment. "Thank you for your participation, but harmony must come from truth." As the day progressed, Tom evaluated more candidates. Some were genuinely moving, their harmonies making the whole yard feel alive with possibility. Others were clearly trying too hard, their harmonies falling flat despite elaborate presentations. The last candidate of the day arrived without fanfare, a simple being that looked like a walking garden, small flowers blooming and fading across their form. They approached the mushrooms shyly. When their harmony began, Tom felt it immediately. It was simpler than the others, but it made the mushrooms glow with warm, gentle pulses. The melody felt like a conversation between old friends, comfortable and real. "This one," Tom said softly. "This harmony speaks of growth and understanding. It's not trying to impress anyone. It's just honest." Blues patterns exploded into joyful spirals. The garden-like beans flowers all bloomed at once in response, filling the air with sweet fragrances. The council members exchanged meaningful looks. The crystal one spoke. "To have found such a promising harmony so early in the season is unprecedented. But of course, we must continue the traditional period of evaluation." They were interrupted by a commotion at the yard's entrance. A new group of aliens had arrived, led by a being that seemed to be made of pure light and shadow. The Grand Matchmaker themselves, Blue whispered, their patterns showing shock. They haven't personally observed a mating season in over a millennium. The Grand Matchmaker floated toward Tom, their voice somehow both everywhere and nowhere. "We have been watching your evaluations with great interest, human guardian. Your species continues to surprise us in delightful ways." Tom looked at the growing crowd, the floating cameras, the Grand Matchmaker, and the mushrooms still glowing with the garden being's harmony. He had a feeling things were about to get even more complicated. The arrival of the Grand Matchmaker changed everything. Tom's small suburban neighborhood had become the center of galactic attention overnight. News crews from Earth finally caught wind of the story, and now human reporters stood alongside their alien counterparts, all trying to understand what made a regular guy from suburbia so special. "Mr. Baker," a reporter from Global News asked, holding up a microphone, "how does it feel to be the first human to receive the Grand Matchmaker's personal attention?" Before Tom could answer, a floating orb of light translated his newest title. The proper term is Harmony Whisperer. It's a sacred designation given to only 7 beings in known space. Tom stood in Blue's yard, which had somehow doubled in size overnight. He suspected alien technology, but decided not to ask. The mushrooms now formed elaborate patterns, their glow visible even in daylight. His guardian robe had evolved too, now shimmering with deep cosmic patterns that matched his emotional state. I just listened to the mushrooms, Tom tried to explain to the gathered media. Anyone could do it. The Grand Matchmaker, their form shifting between light and shadow, made a sound like distant wind chimes. Modesty, another fascinating human trait. But you do far more than listen, Harmony Whisperer. You understand the language of the heart across species barriers. Blue, whose patterns had become increasingly complex over the past days, moved to stand beside Tom. My neighbor has shown remarkable insight. His evaluations have been invaluable. The garden being whose harmony had impressed everyone yesterday was still present, their flowers now forming patterns that somehow complemented Blue's. Tom noticed this and smiled. Some things didn't need translation. A delegation of alien diplomats arrived next, their various forms creating a living rainbow in the yard. Their spokesperson, a being that looked like a collection of floating crystals, addressed the crowd. In light of this success, we propose establishing a human guardian training program. Already, 3,000 aliens across the galaxy have requested human guardians for their own mating seasons. Tom nearly choked on his coffee. 3,000. The crystal diplomat continued. Furthermore, property values in human neighborhoods have increased by 400% due to aliens hoping to find their own. Tom Baker. Local real estate agents are going to love that, Tom muttered, making Blue's patterns swirl with amusement. The Grand Matchmaker raised their form, commanding attention. We have observed something unprecedented here. The human capacity for emotional understanding, combined with their natural adaptability, has opened new possibilities for interspecies harmony. Tom watched as more potential mates arrived, each waiting patiently for their turn. But he noticed something interesting. Many of them were now talking with humans from the neighborhood who had come to watch. Cultural barriers seemed to be dissolving right in his front yard. Mrs. Johnson from across the street was teaching a group of floating light beings about gardening. The alien children who had watched earlier were now playing an improvised game with human kids, their different forms no barrier to fun. You've started something remarkable, Blue said softly to Tom. This is more than just about finding my mate now. You've shown that humans have a gift for bringing species together. Tom looked at his yard full of aliens and humans mingling freely, at the mushrooms glowing in harmony with all the different emotional energies around them, and at his guardian robe that now seemed as natural as his old bathrobe. You know what's funny? He said to Blue. A week ago, I was worried about having an alien neighbor. Now I'm helping you date while talking to the galactic press. Blue's patterns formed what Tom now recognized as their equivalent of laughter. And tomorrow will be even more interesting. Why? What's happening tomorrow? The Grand Matchmaker glided over, their voice carrying both amusement and anticipation. Tomorrow, Harmony Whisperer, we begin the final selection process. The galaxy will be watching as you help choose a match that could influence interstellar relations for centuries to come. Tom looked at his glowing mushrooms, his alien neighbor, and the cosmic circus his life had become. No pressure, right? Every alien in hearing range laughed in their own unique way, creating a symphony of joy that made the mushrooms dance with light. The day of the final selection arrived with a sunrise unlike any Earth had ever seen. Thousands of alien ships hung in the sky, their forms creating beautiful patterns in the morning light. Tom's neighborhood had been transformed into what the media called the Garden of Harmony. Every yard now sprouted with glowing mushrooms, though none quite like Blue's. Tom stood in his ceremonial spot, his guardian robe now appearing to contain an entire galaxy within its fabric. The garden being, whose name translated roughly to Dawn's first bloom, waited nervously beside Blue. Their harmony had remained the strongest through all the trials. Remember, the Grand Matchmaker instructed, their form rippling with ceremonial energy. The final selection must be unanimous. Both guardian and candidate must feel complete harmony. The assembled crowd fell silent. Aliens of all forms stood alongside humans from the neighborhood. Mrs. Johnson had even baked cookies for the occasion, which several floating light beings were enthusiastically trying to figure out how to eat. Blue's patterns moved in complex waves of anticipation as dawn's first bloom approached the central mushroom circle. The harmony began, soft at first, then building into something extraordinary. The mushrooms glowed with colors Tom had never seen before, their song touching something deep in everyone present. Tom closed his eyes, feeling the harmony flow through him. When he opened them, he smiled. "It's perfect," he said simply, like two parts of the same song finding each other. Blue's patterns erupted in joy, matching the blooming flowers across dawn's first blooms form. The grand matchmaker raised their hands, and all the mushrooms in the yard pulsed with celebratory light. But then something unexpected happened. Small glowing sprouts began emerging in Tom's yard next door. The grand matchmaker moved closer, their form showing intense interest. Extraordinary. The harmony has affected Earth's native biology. These are not alien mushrooms. They're Earth plants responding to the harmonic frequencies. Scientists in the crowd rushed forward with instruments, both human and alien, all excitedly taking readings. The new plants glowed with a soft, golden light, swaying to a melody only they could hear. "A hybrid," one alien scientist announced. "The first natural fusion of Earth biology and harmonic resonance. This is unprecedented." The ceremony transformed into something bigger. A celebration not just of Blue and Dawn's first blooms union, but of a new chapter in human-alien relations. The neighborhood kids were the first to notice that the new glowing plants responded to laughter and joy, glowing brighter when people were happy. Tom Baker, the grand matchmaker, announced, their voice carrying across the gathering. "You have done more than serve as a guardian. You have helped create a bridge between our worlds." Blue, their patterns now permanently synchronized with Dawn's first blooms flowing flowers, approached Tom. "We would like to make this place a center for harmony studies. If you're willing, we'd love to have you help train future guardians, both human and alien." "You want me to be a teacher?" Tom asked, surprised. "A bridge builder," the grand matchmaker corrected. "The first of many. Your neighborhood will be known as the birthplace of a new tradition." Looking around, Tom saw the future unfolding. Human children playing with alien young ones among the glowing plants. Scientists of both worlds working together to understand the new hybrid species. Regular people from his neighborhood chatting with beings from across the galaxy as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Well," Tom said with a smile, "I guess this means the neighborhood's property values really are going up." Everyone laughed. A symphony of human chuckles, alien chimes, and everything in between. The new plants glowed brighter in response, adding their own harmony to the moment. As the celebration continued, Tom looked at his glowing yard and the amazing changes one unexpected friendship had brought. His quiet suburban life had become something extraordinary, but somehow it felt right. After all, he thought, the best neighbors are the ones who help you grow, even if they happen to be purple-skinned aliens whose mating season involves musical mushrooms. In the end, it wasn't just about finding Blue's perfect match. It was about all of them finding their place in a bigger harmony, one that would continue to grow and evolve, just like the golden plants now blooming in his yard.